I see you. I see.
I bring it down like.
I see you. I see.
I bring it down like.
Lofi Poli Sci, how we doing out there? We're out in Low Fidelity Studios, coming at you, my people. Where you at? Where you at? And right in with what you got going on. YouTube, Instagram, we everywhere. Now down to business with some South American news. That's right, Lo-Fi Global's focusing on South America today. And let's start out in the north of the continent, with Venezuela and Guyana, who, like so many places and countries around the world, have border disputes, disputed regions of who controls and who owns what land. Now, this land dispute between Venezuela and Guyana is not at all new. No. It goes way back in the day. Now, even for brief moments throughout the years, violence has taken place, but not all-out war, right? It's important to keep that in mind. So it's just mostly been disputed, but no open warfare for the most part. Now, what is new to all of this is what is happening at the United Nations and at one of its judicial institutions, the ICJ. That's the International Court of Justice. And this is the only judicial institution that is able to settle disputes between countries. In this specific regard, having to do with land disputes, geography. And I cannot stress that enough. All right, so Guyana went to the United Nations to resolve this issue. The UN gave it to the ICJ, but Venezuela, and because of the actions of their current president, who initiated a process to pull Venezuela out of the ICJ's jurisdiction, it went through this process years and years ago, and now Venezuela is telling the United Nations and Guyana and the ICJ that they can't settle this dispute. They don't recognize them. This is pointless. Guyana should have never brought it up to the UN or the ICJ because Venezuela does not recognize them as a ruling court. So, if the ICJ was the only place that could have possibly resolved this between the two countries, since there's no other judicial institutions who can do that like this, what happens next? Question mark. Well, there's your answer. Nothing. The dispute will continue, likely until one of the country's militaries decide to physically take over the territory, and what would be potentially escalating into an all-out war. And that's that. We'll keep an eye on this to see how it plays out moving forward, but this is a dispute with no resolution at the moment. Now, out in other news, we're going to move on out to Colombia, where a former president is, and just recently, sentenced to 12 years of house arrest for fraud and witness tampering. And they also got a hefty little fine in there, too. But the former president is appealing this decision and saying that this is an act against democracy. And here comes the important question for Colombia. It brings up the question for the rights of former presidents and even current presidents in the country. But once they move out of office in Colombia, should former presidents be protected from criminal prosecution? Question mark. And you know what? This is going to an appeals court, so they will decide. It'll probably go all the way to the Supreme Court, and they will decide. So we'll let you know how things end up in Colombia. Now out to Bolivia, where a presidential runoff election is set to take place just in October. That's right. That's the general election for the president just took place, and a whole bunch of people ran. And no one of the candidates won over 40% of the vote with at least a 10% lead. Those are the rules for presidential elections in Bolivia. But therefore, since no one got that, the top two vote getters will have a runoff. And this is where it starts to come interesting too. Those two top vote getters are not the current ruling party of the president of Bolivia. So this is so interesting because we're going to see a brand new government form in the country of Bolivia, regardless of whoever wins the presidential election. This is huge. The power that has been there for so long is now leaving. That's just how democracy works. You win some, you lose some. Now, on over to the country of Peru, where their current president is pardoning specific police officers, soldiers, and civilian militias for atrocities committed in the 80s and 90s, having to do with fighting insurgent groups that turned into drug cartels, groups like Sendero Luminoso. And this is what we call an amnesty law is being passed, or has been passed by the president, signed off on, which will remove any wrongdoing of those who are on trial for atrocities committed during fighting those groups like Sendero Luminoso during the 2 decades of battling in the 80s and 90s. This is a hot topic in Peru. And lots of countries around the world deal with amnesty laws and pardoning those who broke laws during war. Because it's that age-old question and that old saying, and you've heard some version of it, one person's freedom fighter is another person's insurgent. And the president has definitely chosen a path on that question. And it's not Sendero Luminoso. And yeah, that's a double entendre for all you Spanish speakers out there. I know you get it. And a last piece of news to send you out on your way for the day. To the country of Chile we go, where presidential elections are this November, and a new candidate wants to join the race. An actor who also has Down syndrome. Now, just to start off, there are no laws saying that he cannot run for president. But as of yesterday, August 18th, though we haven't been able to confirm it yet, but it does seem like he was unable to collect the 35,000 signatures in order to get added to the presidential ballot. Now, again, for us recording, that deadline just passed. It was yesterday. And so far, we can't find any press about it. And leading up to it, it looked like he was not going to be able to collect the 35,000 signatures. But this actor is well known, well liked, and as an actor, one would think you could likely get 35,000 people to sign a petition for you to run for president. Right? Question mark? Now, here we're getting toward a very specific question, and it's linked to one of the issues that the presidential hopeful was running on. Bringing awareness to the public on people with Down syndrome and disabilities, to increase their representation, their visibility, their voices, and their needs and concerns to government. And look, by now you are likely thinking what we're just going to go ahead and say. But there is no way we can know for certain that the reason he could not get the 35,000 signatures to run for president was based on discrimination against a person with disabilities. There's no way we can know that for sure. You'd have to ask everyone in the country, why did you not sign for this person to run for president? And you would have to expect them to give you an honest answer. It's the only way we could get that data. But what we can know is that regardless of running for president or not in the country of Chile, this time or in the future, now the idea of someone with Down syndrome running for president is out there. And perhaps more people will be willing to support that candidate or another candidate. We'll just have to wait and see. And that's our South American edition of Lo-Fi Global News, people. And this is just a snap of what's going on in the world today.
I bring it down like.
Always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's the we that we be.